My name's David. I'm 33 years old, work in corporate compliance, and up until 6 months ago, I was in what I thought was a stable, committed relationship. Anna and I had been living together for just under 2 years. She was 28, worked part-time at a boutique clothing store, and said she planned to go back to school soon, something to do with interior design. I didn't press her on it much. Maybe I should have. We rented a quiet townhouse just outside Atlanta. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. She decorated it like something out of a magazine. String lights on the back patio. Throw pillows I wasn't allowed to actually lean on. A shelf full of travel books, half of which we never opened. I paid the bulk of the rent and utilities. She handled groceries and smaller expenses. It wasn't perfectly even, but it felt fair. We had a joint savings account, about $14,000 in it, something we'd built slowly over time. It started as a travel fund, a weekend in Asheville here, a plan to see Italy someday there. Eventually, it turned into more of a rainy day account. Emergencies, a cushion. She had access to it, and I did too. I never imagined I'd need to monitor it. Trust, I thought, was part of being a functioning adult in a long-term relationship. Anna wasn't loud or dramatic. She was calm, sarcastic, sometimes passive-aggressive, but overall easy to be around. Our arguments were rare, and when we had them, they didn't last long. Mostly about time. She wanted more of it from me. My job meant long hours. I traveled occasionally for client meetings or legal training sessions. She said she understood that early on. Over time, though, I noticed the way she'd pause before I left town, the way she'd say, "okay," but with that look. I chalked it up to normal wear and tear. Every couple hits those patches. I'd been out of town a few times that year already, and nothing had gone wrong. We texted, FaceTimed, sent each other dumb memes like usual. She'd sometimes say she missed me more than she expected. I told her the same. I meant it. The weekend before everything happened, we went to brunch at her favorite place downtown. She ordered French toast. I had coffee and eggs. She was in a good mood. Said we should start planning a trip for fall, maybe Colorado or Oregon. I told her I'd look at flights when I got back from Denver next week. She kissed me when I paid the bill. We stopped by a consignment shop afterward, and she bought a sweater. She held it up and asked, "Do you like it?" I said, "Yeah, looks like you." That was the last normal day we had. Monday morning, I left for a 3-day compliance seminar in Denver, a routine work trip. I packed light. She helped fold my shirts the night before, threw a couple protein bars in my bag, and said, "Text me when you land." I did. She didn't respond. But I figured she was at work or tired, no big deal. No. I didn't know yet that by the time my plane touched down in Colorado, she was already gone. Not just from the townhouse, from the city, from my life. I landed in Denver around 1:15 p.m. It was cold, overcast, the kind of weather I always found weirdly calming. I texted Anna like I always did. "Landed, shuttle's late as usual. How's your day?" No read receipt. Again, not unusual. She often kept her phone on silent at the boutique. I checked into the hotel, dropped my bag, and got settled in for the usual corporate fun. Keynote speaker with too many buzzwords, boxed lunch, dry coffee. I texted her again around 6:30 p.m. before heading to dinner with a few other attendees. Just a short message. "Heading out. Talk after?" Nothing. That night, when I got back to the hotel and still hadn't heard anything, I called. Straight to voicemail. "No, sorry, missed your call" text either. That was unusual. But I told myself maybe she forgot her charger or was out with a friend. I didn't panic. Not yet. By morning, it was harder to ignore. Still no texts. No call. Her phone went straight to voicemail again, which meant it was off or dead. I tried her sister. Casual tone. Nothing alarming. "Hey, have you talked to Anna lately? I haven't heard from her since yesterday, just checking in." No response right away. Then I tried to log into our shared bank account, something I did once a week just to keep track. And that's when the first real alarm bell rang. The account had a balance of $4.12. We'd had over $14,000 saved. I remembered the last number clearly because I'd looked at it a few days earlier. I thought maybe it was a bug or access issue, so I refreshed the page. Same result. I checked the transaction history. Two large transfers, one for $9,800, the other for $4,200, had been made to a different checking account, one I didn't recognize. Then the account was closed. My stomach dropped. I sat there in my hotel room with my laptop open, just staring. There was no fraud alert, no suspicious activity notice. These weren't hacks. They were internal transfers made from our joint account using her login credentials. I called the bank, explained what I saw. The rep pulled up the activity and said, "Yes, the account was closed yesterday by one of the account holders. Is there a problem?" I said I didn't authorize the closure. They asked if I wanted to open a dispute, but since the transfer came from a named account holder, Anna, it would fall under domestic financial dispute, which is legal gray area. Essentially, civil issue, not fraud. That's when I called our landlord. I asked if he'd heard from Anna in the past few days or seen anything strange. Long pause. Then he said, "Actually, yeah. She came by Monday morning, said you guys were moving out by the end of the month, paid early termination fee in cash. Seemed in a hurry. The guy even asked if I'd found a new place yet. I told him no, and he went quiet. Man, I thought it was weird. She said you were starting a new job in Chicago." I wasn't. I'd never even mentioned Chicago. I opened the Find My app. Her location was unavailable. She'd either turned off her phone or disabled sharing. Instagram, gone. Facebook, wiped. Even the shared Google Calendar we used, deleted. That's when I realized she didn't just take the money. She vanished. I didn't go to the second day of the conference. I got dressed, walked downstairs like I was headed to the sessions, but instead I found a corner table in the hotel lobby and opened my laptop. I sat there for 4 straight hours, digging. First, I pulled up our shared cloud account, the one we used for bills, photos, vacation plans. It had been partially emptied. A bunch of folders were still there, receipts, invoices, copies of past leases, but photos were missing. Specifically, ones with her family or ones where we were together on trips, Vegas, Asheville, Austin, just gone. I checked the trash folder, nothing. She'd manually deleted and emptied it. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even speak. I just sat there, going cold. Then I moved to email. I still had her login from when I helped her set up 2-factor authentication last year. I knew I shouldn't check, legally speaking, but I did. Her personal Gmail was active, very active. She'd forwarded a rental application to someone named Chase F. and had confirmed a U-Haul booking for March 4th, the day I left. She'd sent herself PDFs of my car title, insurance documents, even a scan of my driver's license. That last one was from a time she said she needed it to update our renter's profile. It all clicked. She sold my car. I called the police in Atlanta. The car was technically in both of our names. I'd added her to the title when we first started splitting errands, mostly as a gesture of trust. At the time, it felt like a grown-up decision. The officer I spoke with was polite, but basically told me the same thing the bank had. It's not theft if the co-owner sells it. That's a civil matter. He paused and added, "But you can file a report, especially if you suspect fraud was involved with the paperwork." I did. Not because I expected anything to come of it, but because I needed something on record. I didn't know where she went. The emails were vague. The U-Haul drop-off was listed in Charlotte, North Carolina. That was it. I searched for the guy, Chase F., found a few possibilities on Facebook and LinkedIn. None confirmed. No real photos, no tags. Whoever he was, he either had a fresh account or knew how to stay offline. I texted her one more time. I know what you did. I won't chase you. But you should know. I'm not as stupid as you thought. No response. I checked our apartment's Ring camera. She'd uninstalled the app from her phone, so the feed was still linked to mine. There was footage, grainy, but clear. Around 10:27 a.m. the day I left, a rental truck backed into our driveway. She and a man, average build, hoodie up, loaded 4 suitcases and 6 boxes. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even moving fast, just calm, methodical, like someone checking off a list. She left my belongings, most of them. But she took the envelope with my passport, my father's old watch, and a small black box with a tie clip I'd worn to my sister's wedding. I still don't know why. That night in the hotel, I drank exactly 1 beer. Didn't speak to anyone. Didn't sleep more than an hour. In the morning, I went back to Atlanta, but not home. I checked into a short-term rental under a different name. Just needed time, space, not to heal, whatever that means, but to think, quietly. I went to work on Monday like nothing happened, because what else do you do? By Monday morning, everything on the surface went back to normal. I showed up at work at 8:03 a.m., coffee in hand, button-down shirt pressed, as if the last 72 hours hadn't happened. No one asked anything. Why would they? My job isn't exactly social. Compliance officers aren't the kind of people coworkers casually check in on. We're background noise, suits and corners. And that worked for me. I opened my laptop, ran a standard vendor audit, flagged 2 outdated NDAs, replied to emails like my personal life wasn't scattered across 2 states and a deleted cloud account. The numbness was helpful. Focus is easy when you've shut everything else off. I didn't tell anyone. Not my manager, not friends, not my sister. There wasn't a version of this story that didn't make me sound like an idiot. And frankly, I agreed with that assessment. What kind of person adds their girlfriend to a car title and a savings account without a second thought? What kind of person doesn't notice the exit plan forming around them in real time? I spent the evenings at the rental, a second-floor unit above a retired woman who overwatered her plants and listened to conservative radio too loud. I kept the lights off, watched the ceiling fan turn, tried to piece together the part I played in all of this, because it would be easy to just label her a thief and move on. But I'd known Anna for almost 3 years, or thought I had. We'd shared a bed, a bank account, a plan, and in the end, she didn't just betray me. She studied me. She figured out exactly how to vanish without confrontation. She picked the perfect moment, a 72-hour window when I was guaranteed to be across the country, offline, unavailable. It wasn't just what she took. It was the message underneath it. You won't do anything, you never really did. And she was right, at least for that first week. I didn't try to track her down, didn't file a civil suit, didn't call her sister again. It would have made me feel weak, like I was begging someone who'd already turned the page. Instead, I started watching her from a distance. Not literally. I didn't know where she lived, but I had pieces, fragments, metadata from old emails, a resume she'd submitted last year when I helped her apply for a job, her social security number from tax filings. All of it still sat in our shared Google Drive, the one she'd tried to clean but missed a few folders. So I created a file, quietly. No labels, no revenge fantasy nonsense, just facts, dates, screenshots, notations. It wasn't about getting her back. That sounded like high school logic. It was about clarity, about not rewriting history in my head later and wondering if I'd imagined it. I kept the file to myself. 2 weeks passed. My lease on the townhouse expired. I let the landlord keep the deposit. I didn't even ask. Moved my things into storage except for a suitcase of basics and my work laptop. Life got minimal, simple, controlled. Then, late April, I got a new contract. A mid-sized marketing firm in Midtown needed help cleaning up their vendor agreements and internal controls. Short-term project, good pay, clean reputation. I signed the NDA, set up a start date, and showed up the following Monday in a gray button-down and the same leather bag I'd carried through all of this. I walked into the lobby, gave my name to the front desk receptionist. She didn't look up right away, just typed, then turned the folder toward me. "Here's your welcome packet," she said, cheerful, professional. And that's when we made eye contact, Anna. It took me a full 2 seconds to process what I was seeing. She was different, not unrecognizably, but enough to create that moment of cognitive friction. Her hair was darker, shorter, tucked back neatly like she was trying to look more corporate. No makeup, or at least none like I was used to. New posture, too, straighter, practiced. But it was her, Anna. She looked at me. Her eyes flicked up and locked for a moment. She knew. I could see it. The brief widening of her pupils, the micro-freeze in her fingers, the slight tightening of her jaw. And then, just as quickly, she hit it. "Welcome to Kindred," she said, like I was a stranger. I didn't flinch. Didn't say her name. I took the folder, nodded once, and walked past the desk like I didn't know her at all. But inside, my pulse was in my ears. I could feel every muscle in my neck. I hadn't seen her in 49 days, and the last image I had was her walking to a moving truck on my security camera. Now she was standing in front of me like nothing happened, handing me a laminated name badge. I took the elevator to the 6th floor where the legal team had their temporary setup. The firm had just moved offices, and nothing was organized yet. My role was to audit vendor contracts, review payment workflows, and build internal compliance processes. Nothing that involved reception. Nothing that involved her. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Was it intentional? Did she know I was coming? Impossible. This was a private placement through a B2B agency. My name wouldn't have been in the onboarding material until Friday at the earliest. Her shock was real, which meant this wasn't planned. It was just dumb luck, or fate, or irony, whatever you want to call it. At lunch, I walked to a sandwich shop a block over. Didn't eat. Just sat with the bag in front of me and stared out the window. She was working under a different last name. I saw it on her badge. A. Monroe, her mother's maiden name. I remembered because we once joked about how Monroe sounded more glamorous than her real one. She'd reinvented herself here. Back at the office, I logged into the admin portal. Not to snoop, just to orient myself. Standard procedure. While mapping out vendor access permissions, I noticed the front desk had access to the internal billing system through a shared credential. Nothing unusual. Smaller companies do that all the time. But I checked the log out of habit. 2 days ago, someone had used that account to make changes to a vendor file. Small changes. Address update, revised invoice number, rounded up payment total. Nothing criminal. Just odd. The kind of edits that don't trigger alarms, but change money flow in subtle ways. I documented it. Made a quiet note. Not for retaliation, for the audit report. The next morning, she avoided eye contact. I walked in. She slid my visitor sticker across the desk without a word. Her hands were steady. She'd had time to recalibrate. Around 11 a.m., I overheard her on the phone in the hallway outside the conference room. I wasn't trying to listen, but her voice was tight, lower than normal. "No, I didn't know. He just showed up. He's working here. I don't know what to do." Pause. Because I can't just leave again, that's why. That confirmed it. She wasn't with the same guy she'd run off with. She wasn't in Charlotte anymore. She was here, trying to reset her life under a new name, pretending nothing had happened. She probably assumed I'd moved on, that I was too passive, too quiet to ever show up again. And to be honest, she wasn't entirely wrong. I wasn't here to confront her. I wasn't going to make a scene in the lobby or demand she explain herself. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to work. But she didn't know that, and that was the leverage. That afternoon, I submitted my initial findings to the legal head, included 3 vendor inconsistencies, and noted that front desk access should be limited to non-financial systems. I didn't mention her by name, didn't even allude to it. That night, I added a new page to the private file I'd kept on my desktop. Anna, Phase 2. The next few days were quiet, professionally productive, personally surreal. Anna and I kept the illusion going. She didn't speak to me beyond what her role required, handing off packages, greeting clients, forwarding calls. I didn't acknowledge anything either. Not the car, not the account, not the watch she took. We were two strangers orbiting each other under artificial lighting. But behind that silence, things were moving. Wednesday morning, I met with the firm's managing partner, Vanessa Calloway, late 40s, sharp, no bullshit. We sat in a small glass conference room with folders stacked between us. "I've reviewed your notes," she said, flipping to a marked page. "This billing cleanup may be more complicated than we thought." I nodded. "Your vendor data's fragmented. Multiple points of access, no audit trail. That's how mistakes happen." I didn't say "or manipulation." I didn't need to. She picked up on the subtext. Later that afternoon, while checking historical edits in the accounting system, I traced a series of recurring anomalies. They weren't big, a $39 overage here, a duplicate invoice there. But they centered around 3 vendors. All 3 had invoices modified from the same IP address, the same one used by the front desk login. The changes spanned 6 weeks. Now again, nothing overtly illegal, but when you combine small inconsistencies with access that shouldn't exist, it becomes a pattern. I documented it fully, clean, professional, no accusation. I submitted the summary Thursday morning. Included in the email was a single paragraph. Recommend restricting financial system access to authorized finance admin personnel only. Shared front desk credentials represent a material risk for accidental or intentional errors. Vanessa replied 2 hours later. "Agreed. Meeting with IT this afternoon. Thank you." At 4:45 p.m., I walked past the lobby. Anna wasn't at her desk. Instead, a temp worker from HR sat there, clearly unfamiliar with the phone system. I didn't ask questions. Friday morning, Anna was back, pale, distracted. No eye contact this time. Not even a nod. She knew. Not everything. Not that I had a full record of what she did to me. Not that I'd reported the car stolen. Not that I'd spoken to her landlord the day after she left and learned she'd paid him in cash. But she knew something had shifted. That this place, this new identity she'd built, wasn't entirely safe anymore. She tapped nervously on her desk, checked her phone every few minutes, called in sick after lunch. I didn't say a word, didn't look in her direction. I spent the afternoon reworking a vendor due diligence form and helping HR draft updated access protocols. That weekend, I sat on my couch with the lights off, didn't drink, didn't watch TV. Just sat with the question, was that it? Was this what closure looked like? No confrontation, no apology, just the quiet awareness that she finally felt what I'd felt, vulnerability. Maybe that was enough. But then came Monday. Vanessa called me into her office. "We're terminating the temp contract at reception," she said, casually as if it were a weather update. "Anna's no longer with the firm. She resigned over the weekend. No reason given." I nodded slowly. Was it related to the audit? She looked at me for a moment, not accusing, not curious, just aware. I think she realized this wasn't the right environment for her. I left the office without responding, got lunch from the same sandwich place, ate outside for once, sun on my face, first time I'd tasted anything in weeks. She was gone, again. Only this time I watched her leave. And I didn't lose a single thing. That Monday night, I walked home slower than usual. Not tired, just aware. Of the weight lifting. Of how quiet the city felt without the constant hum in my head. Anna was out of my physical space, out of my workplace, and soon, I suspected, out of the city entirely. She hadn't left a note this time either. Not that I expected one. She was consistent in one thing. Clean exits, zero accountability. A pattern I was starting to see. Not a one-time decision. But this time, I didn't come home to an empty apartment. I came home to the same couch, the same lamp I turned on by habit, the same silence, except this time it wasn't oppressive. It was peaceful. I opened the file again, the one I'd been keeping since Denver. The digital log, screenshots, timelines, bank transfers, voice memos I'd made late at night when details popped into my head, photos from the Ring app, her resume, a still from the security footage the day she left, even the fake last name on her badge. I stared at the folder for a long time. Then I dragged it to the recycle bin, not because I forgave her, not because I thought what she didn't matter, but because I didn't need it anymore. What was I going to do? Sue her for $14,000? Call her new employer every time she started over? Chase her across cities like she was a con artist in a crime novel? That wasn't me. That was never going to be me. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to be the last thing she expected, unshaken. Because here's the truth no one likes to say out loud. Sometimes the best outcome isn't making someone pay. It's watching them scramble for control while you stay still. Anna didn't take anything that I couldn't replace. She didn't break anything that I hadn't already outgrown. She thought I was the kind of man who would sit quietly and do nothing. And she was right. But what she never understood was that silence doesn't always mean weakness. Sometimes silence means strategy. And sometimes it just means you've already won. 2 weeks after Anna left the firm, life finally stabilized. Not in some dramatic, movie-style way where everything is suddenly better, but in the real way. My mornings had rhythm again. I started sleeping more than 4 hours a night. I bought groceries that weren't just protein bars and takeout. Even my apartment, sparse as it was, began to feel lived in, not like a temporary stop between damage and escape. The contract with Kindred wrapped quietly. Vanessa offered to extend it into a permanent role. Director of Compliance, full benefits, corner office. I thanked her but declined. Not because I didn't respect the team, but because I knew I didn't want my next chapter to be written in a place that would always be tied to her. I took a week off, first in over a year, drove south without a plan, stayed in a roadside inn near Savannah for 2 nights, walked the beach in a pair of sneakers I hadn't worn since we took that Asheville trip. I didn't think about her constantly anymore. When I did, it was more like background static. Not the sharp sting, just the faint shape of a lesson. I used to wonder what justice looked like in situations like mine. Would it be public humiliation, a police report, a forced apology? None of that happened. And yet I still felt settled. Because justice, I realized, isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about rebalancing, quietly, patiently, watching someone try to start over in the exact way they destroyed you, and knowing you no longer have to say a word for it to register. I still think she expected me to implode, to come after her. Maybe she even wanted that. It would have made her the victim in a story she could retell. But I didn't give her a scene. I gave her silence. I gave her distance. I gave her the cold efficiency of consequence, wrapped in professionalism she never thought I had in me. There was one last thing, though. 2 nights before I left Kindred, someone from the mailroom dropped a padded envelope on my desk. No return label. No note inside. Just a small black box. My father's watch. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't broken. The strap had been replaced. A subtle, new leather band. I checked the postmark. It had been sent from a private mailbox across town. Same day she left the job. It wasn't an apology. That wasn't her style. It was something else. A gesture. A signal that she knew the damage had been done, and that I'd carried it quietly, with more dignity than she expected. I didn't reach out. Didn't respond. I just put the watch back in my drawer and closed it. Some stories don't end with explosions. They end with doors closing softly, locks changing, names being deleted from folders. And peace, real peace, is when you stop checking the hallway for someone who walked out on their own. I still don't know where she is now, and I don't care.